He's good. Welcome to Basic Black at the Newsfeed Cafe inside the Boston Public Library. I'm Donna Latson Gittens. I'm your host for today's conversation. And today we're going to talk about a new gospel music performance program for high schoolers at the Berklee's Africana Studies division. The immersive 5-day program begins next week and is open to all levels of musicians and vocalists aged 15 and up. It'll teach students about the history of gospel music, techniques and tools, and put some awareness around the history of gospel in the industry. Our guests today are Reverend Dr. Emmett Price III, a musical scholar and Dean of the Africana Studies Division at Berklee College of Music. Reverend Dr. Price is also a contributor to GBH's Boston Public Radio segment, All Revved Up. And he is the co-executive producer and co-host of the All Revved Up podcast. And we're also joined by Professor Dennis Montgomery from Berklee College of Music. Professor Montgomery is also the teacher and director of the highly regarded Reverend's Gospel Ensemble. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks for having us, Donna.
Thank you very
Glad
much.
to have you here. Let's start off by you telling me a little bit about the program that you're launching on Monday.
Yeah, we're excited to really invite folks from around the world, literally, 15 and up, to Berklee to enjoy and to be expanded in terms of their knowledge and their performance practice in gospel music. What a gift to have the phenomenal expertise of Professor Montgomery here, who has been in the trenches at Berklee, doing so much at the highest level, not only at Berklee, but also in Boston as well. And these young people will come and they will be trained by gospel legend Kurt Carr, who will be with us for the week, as well as an entrepreneur and gospel scholar, Dr. Teresa Harrison. Kurt Carr will help them with their performance practice and teach them some of his material. Dr. Teresa Harrison will talk about the apparatus around gospel music in terms of publication, in terms of the industry, in terms of production and all those things. And then then these young people will be able to work with our phenomenal Berklee faculty and get the top-notch, just par excellence expertise that we have to offer in a very short week-long program.
That's awesome. And Professor Montgomery, tell me a little bit about what inspires you about gospel and why this program is so important.
It is very indigenous to the environment for Berklee. That is what's the necessity, in my opinion. What inspires me is just the uplifting good news that it brings to people, and to bring people closer together and even closer to what we know as Christ, you know. And it serves as like a medicine for a lot of things, and that alone is really, you know, inspiring to me. And yes, on Sundays I kind of get a kick out of inspiring people, you know, because if I'm doing that, then I'm bringing someone closer. You know, and we all need to be closer in the times that we, you know, are currently going through at this point.
I'm really impressed by the fact that you are working with young people, especially around the roots of gospel. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you plan in the curricula to get the young people engaged?
Well, of course, through playing and singing, and through more awareness of gospel music itself, and which it would include even the beginnings called the Negro Spiritual. And we will definitely do it like a progression type of thing through each, you know, era. Showing them the importance as well as the techniques musically, you know, how to perform it, how to execute it, and that's basically, you know, that's the summary of what we're going to be doing, you know, as far as making kids more, you know, apt and more knowledgeable, you know, of what they're doing. So they just won't be casually doing it just to, you know, get a response. No, there's
You're
something
doing it with
behind
intention.
It. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You
So
know.
tell me, do the students have to be interested in it, or do they have to be practiced musicians, or can any young person be in this program?
We have students across the board. We have some who want to be recording artists. We have some who are just interested in learning how to sing. We have some who are just really inspired to learn more about the cultural aspect, right? So one of the things about gospel music is that you don't have pop music. You don't have pop superstars without gospel. You know, when you think about some of the artists over the years, you know, whether you're talking about an Aretha Franklin or a Jennifer Hudson, whether you're talking about an Al Green or a Smokey, you know, Robinson, you know, whether you're talking about historic Motown or you're talking about contemporary music, even hip hop artists. You know, I'm from Los Angeles, California. You know, Calvin Broadus, who we know as Snoop Dogg, grew up at Trinity Baptist Church in Long Beach.
Wow.
And so the gospel music is an inspiration and a catalyst for, first of all, how many of us had access to instruments, and then how we learn to express ourselves verbally and vocally and instrumentally.
So you bring that up about LA, but what about Boston? Does Boston have a gospel history here?
Oh yeah, I mean a rich history. I will tell you one of the great legends of Boston, and I'm just cue this up and I'm gonna hand it to Professor Montgomery because he served under the great John Weeks, Dr. John Weeks at the historic 12th Baptist Church, who was one of the legends of not only church music, but really innovating gospel music here in Boston at this historic church that had probably the widest repertoire of church music you can have, from anthems to spirituals to you know, hymns to, in that moment, the contemporary days. Let me hand this off to Montgomery because he served under Dr. Weeks.
Yes, I can definitely agree with that, because thanks to his tutelage, I know a hymnal from cover to cover. You know, being, you know, brought up Southern Baptist, you know, we sometimes have our set hymns that we normally sing. You know, through 12 Baptist, you know, that really gave me a boost in becoming a lot more versatile, you know, in the church realm itself, you know, and as well as gospel music, you know, especially taking a hymn, singing it as written, and then putting some gospel flavoring on the last couple of verses. This is what we used to do at 12 Baptist.
So have you shared that with your students now?
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And not to mention how Dr. Weeks would have me to sight read a hymn in front of everybody.
Whoa, that's serious.
Yes, you know, and this would be like packed church, you know, upstairs and downstairs. But you know, that particular, I would say that experience really, you know, enlightened me and helped me and empowered me. And yes, I do share it consistently.
And you took that from 12th Baptist and that experience, and then went on to study, and now you're a professor?
Yes.
Awesome. That's fantastic. You know, we all know that gospel music began in the South. My father was from Augusta, Georgia, and in our house we would hear Mahalia Jackson and Reverend James Cleveland, and you know, a number of real rooted gospel singers. How has that influenced what we're hearing now in contemporary gospel?
Sure. You know, one of the things about gospel music, like any music that is based on a repertoire, there are different levels of kind of consistency that you hear. So there may be a mannerism that you hear a vocalist do that can take you back to Clara Ward and the Ward Singers, even in the most contemporary space right now. There may be something musically that you can take back to Arizona Drains, phenomenal Pentecostal pianists that most people don't know about, going way back. And so there's this notion of understanding repertoire and developing that repertoire so that you can be on the front end of innovation while also honoring the legacy of the craft, right? So there's a cultural aspect of it, there's a musical aspect of it, and there's a performance practice aspect of it. And what we want to focus on are all three of those. So it's not just the singing and the playing, as Professor Montgomery said. It's about the fact that these songs carry the legacies of our ancestors. And these are the songs that allowed us to deal with the adversities of life and to be able to not only be resilient, but have a hope and a future for thriving. So that we can move from the pain of reality to the hope of getting to where we can say that we have not only survived, but we're also thriving.
So on that point, I'm going to give you a pop quiz. Give me a few names of songs that you see have carried us through all of the struggles here in America to right now. What are some songs that you would say have lifted us up?
While he's thinking, I'm gonna say, we've come this far by
Good one.
faith.
Yes.
Right? Now you throw one in.
I sing because I'm happy.
All right.
I sing because I'm free. His eyes on the sparrow, and I know he watches. He watches me.
All right, now, thank you. That was amazing. Amazing. Thank you. It is the heart of gospel that gets people going. How do you get there? What are the musical elements that get us to get that feeling that you both just gave us?
You know, I would say that it's the sincerity of it and it's the transparency of it. There's a reality of allowing your pain to be a balm for somebody else. So when we can share our testimony of how we've overcome and what we've been through, it allows for folks to not feel like they're in solitude with their pain and they're struggling. So gospel really connects heart to heart, even before it connects voice to ear. And I think that that's one of the things that is really deeply empowering about gospel music.
Yes, you know, I would definitely say, especially on the word transparency, personal testimony.
All right. Famous gospel song. My Testimony.
Yes. Or if we want to put it in more contemporary, the late Danny Bell, Ordinary People. You know, that's another personal testimony. It's a personal favorite of mine anyway. Because little becomes much when you place it in the master's hands.
All right.
Yeah.
I think we can stop the conversation and just do a concert. That would be good. So we have, you know, the big names, Mavis Staples, Aretha Franklin, I hate to mention it, but Elvis Presley, who borrowed from black music.
Quite true.
But they transferred from gospel right into R&B and other music styles. How do we make sure that young people understand that progression? Because it didn't just pop up.
No, I think what you just said is very important. I think Elvis is a perfect case study. So Elvis Presley, you know, came from a very poor situation there in Tennessee, and was a frequent visitor to the East Trigg Baptist Church, where Pastor W. Herbert Brewster was there. And Elvis was known as Brother Elvis in this historically black church, and he would sit in the back pew.
Wow.
And the thing is that Elvis would see how the choir would sway. He would hear the emotive notions of expression in that choir. And in many ways, that's really where he learned some of his performance practice. The challenge is that because of the historical narrative that we see, that we have divided and created binaries in terms of, folks who listen to Dick Clark's American Bandstand and folks who listen to Don Cornelius or Soul Train, if you see what I'm saying, that we've created a fictitious notion of separation. But there are so many artists across the ethnicities who have been inspired, who have been empowered, who have been gifted through gospel music.
I can go one further back than that. George Gershwin.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Let's go back further.
Yeah.
We wouldn't even have I Got Rhythm or Porgy and Bess if it wasn't for him hanging out what I would call the churches sitting on the cinder blocks with the graveyard on the side, in those type of churches, you know, which is, I can only imagine, in a couple of his biographies, it states where he would sit and, witness all of the, the praising and the shouting and even like the bluesiness of the music in the black churches, which is how, if you listen to his music, it's very, very, very black inspired. Even Rhapsody in Blue.
Right.
I mean, I've heard a lot of piano players do that in services like constantly all through my life. I mean, it's as you can see, it's more universal than anything.
Well, so what do you think the inflection point is now? Because we do have rap, gospel rap.
Yeah.
What contributed to that change, to that switch from the traditional Negro spiritual hymn to now the change of gospel rap?
If you trace the chronology of any musical genre, you'll find that every 15 to 20 years, there's a new generation that wants to express itself in its own terminology in its own way. And that new generation will guide itself and base itself on its parents' or grandparents', expression, but there's always an evolution. I mean, one of the things I like to say that if we as musicians are intellects, we're always thinking about how to best articulate and demonstrate that which is needed for humanity in order to move forward and be progressive. So when you have the merging or the fusion of gospel with other genres, it's just a part of moving forward. And so when you think about contemporary gospel music and you think about the sounds and the productions and all of the things that you experience, it's all grounded and based on the evolutional process, right? It's all based on the patriarchs and the matriarchs of that expression, and then it goes and it grows. So what we want to teach our young people is not to be afraid of the historical expressions, to learn them, because the further you can go back, the further you can move forward.
That's quite true.
And they're taking that alongside new technology.
Absolutely.
Live streaming lyrics.
All that.
Putting different musical hints or taste to it. Can you talk a little bit about that, Professor?
Yes, definitely technology. Thanks to the pandemic, we had to rely on technology quite a bit at Berklee, especially in the ensemble department. We were kind of like forced to operate and as like having recording, at least myself, recording projects instead of live performances, because it's not safe to have live performances. But in that, I find myself being more creative, in the teaching realm. Now, I'm playing in the software Logic or Pro Tools, whichever people might prefer, and I can be creative and show them verbatim actually what's in my mind. And if I'm singing, singing background parts for a particular song, then the vocalist can have an idea, for as articulation, volume, dynamics, an instrumentalist, for the fact that if I'm playing it in, notation is provided through the software.
Nice.
So they can see even my glitches, because sometimes my fingers hit more than one note at a time.
That's because you're getting excited. That's
Not only is he getting excited, but Professor Montgomery is being very modest, because literally this is one of our geniuses in the realm of gospel music, particularly in terms of performance practice. I mean, his musicality and his musicianship is par excellence. I mean, he's traveled all around the world and trained choirs, choral ensembles, musicians. You can go on YouTube right now and see how many people around the world are just chiming in to see what he does and how he thinks and how he processes. And as a musician, to be able to play the bandwidth going all the way back to the Negro spiritual and to the most contemporary of sounds right now. And to me, he's one of our treasures and one of the reasons why we can actually do a program like this and have young people want to come and study this with us, because we have a phenomenal expert, treasure, gem in Professor Dennis Montgomery III.
Thank you, Dr. Price. Thank you
That's
very much.
fantastic. And as you say, the young people are really excited about it. Are there more opportunities open for them to get into the program at this point?
We are tight, but I think if you reach out to us via our website and communication, I think it's Africana Studies at berklee.edu. If you send an email there, our folks will receive as many as we can. But we would love, and this is the first of what we believe to be an annual program.
Right.
And then it's also the first offering of what we're going to build out across the year. So we will have clinics and seminars and all kinds of opportunities to really engage in this gospel space. And then I must tell you that at the end of April in 2023, we're going to have a huge gospel extravaganza at the Berklee Performance Center.
Awesome.
And Kurt Carr will anchor that. Professor Dennis Montgomery III.
He's prophesying right now.
That's all that singing you did, all that good singing. And the Reverend's Gospel Choir will be there. And we're going to just have a good old time. And so this is something that we in Africana Studies at Berklee are deeply, deeply and passionately committed to. And, everybody just hang on in there and watch as we build and grow it.
That is fantastic. So we're just about to wrap up. I'm going to ask you a really quick question. You just have to answer really fast.
Yes.
Who are your favorite gospel singers right now?
Dennis Montgomery.
Gee, that was a slam dunk. That was a slam dunk. Professor Montgomery, 30 seconds. he's laughing at it.
Yes, I would say he's not gospel, but he has some gospel experience. Luther Vandross.
Okay.
And we got to add Kurt Carr here too.
Yes.
Got to add Kurt Carr.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're out of time, but this has been a great discussion. I want to know about this gospel concert when it comes up, and I wish you congratulations going forward as you build out this program for the first time. Dr. Emmett Price III, Professor Montgomery, be sure to catch this discussion on our social platforms. This has been Basic Black at the Boston Public Library in the Newsfeed Cafe, and we want you to enjoy the rest of your day.